today. Hello, everyone, and welcome. You're on the wire. You're on the wire. How exciting is this? Got some friends here today, and it is Natalie. It's not Carly. That happens, doesn't it, Natalie? And what would be fantastic is if we can have a quick whip around the room and give us your name and the organisation that you're joining us from. That's going to be helpful for our connection and collaboration. I want to firstly just acknowledge my colleague Lisa there and thank her for participating. She's our, I'm going to say, lead assessor. So it's very, very helpful to have Lisa and her expertise here. I know that she's assessed some of your organisations, so you know how very diligent she is. Eagle-eyed Scully, we probably like to call her in our team.
Got my red goggles on today. I wear these when I have an assessment that's maybe not going quite as well as it should be.
Is that because you look a little bit more scary, a little bit more order in those glasses? Yes.
Giving off the red vibes instead of the cat eye vibes.
Fabulous. And you will know that I'm Marie Davidson, and I'm looking after this merry band of assessors and all that happens at Highwire and our opportunity to collaborate with you. But I'm mostly behind the scenes for most of you, looking after contracts and administration, things like that. Let's whip around. I'm going to start with you, Bruce, because you're looking very relaxed and in control of technology. She says. Oh, let's go to someone else. Why don't we go to Nigel and we'll wait for Bruce to find his, the right button there.
To unmute. Hi, it's Nigel Parker, and I'm from a youth service in Sydney called St Lawrence House, and we're a medium-term refuge supporting children and young people aged 13 to 17 with an outreach program for 18 to 24-year-olds.
Perfectly done, Nigel. Thanks very much. How are you going, John?
Hi, everybody. I'm John Carrigan. I'm calling in from Veritas House, which is based in Orange and Bathurst in the Central West. And we have both youth homelessness services and out-of-home care for children.
Lovely.
Thank you, Marie.
Stuff, John. Thanks very much. I can tell that Bruce is ready. Let's go, Bruce.
Ready. Sorry, everybody. I'm not really in control of technology. It controls me. Anyway, from Youth Off the Streets in Sydney, but calling in from where Lisa lives in beautiful Hunter Valley, Lake Macquarie, Newcastle region, today working from home. And Youth Off the Streets, we're a youth-based organisation working with young people 12 to 24. We have 6 independent schools, 2 refuges, 24, what do we call them, 24 transitional homes, and we run outreach services as well. So that's us very quickly.
A lot going on, isn't there, at Youth Off the Streets?
A bit happening, yep.
Fabulous. All right, let's go to Sean now.
Yeah, Sean Hames, Mount Barker Community Centre. That's Mount Barker SA, not WA. I'm amazed at how many phone calls we get for people looking for community centre in Western Australia.
Oh, true.
Yeah, a lot. And yeah, we're a medium-sized community centre, fastest growing district in South Australia at the moment. One community centre. So there you go.
One community centre, but about 10 op shops. I want to tell you, I love going to Mount Barker and going op shopping. It's one of my favourite things to do there.
Yeah, one of them is one of ours. So there you go.
One of them is yours. That's fantastic. Yeah. Oh, thank you, Sean, for being here with us in beautiful South Australia. I'll say hello to Kelly. Kelly, how are you?
Sorry, I'm good. I thought I was going to jump on here, Lisa, and just be a sneaky, but
if you want.
So
No sneakies here.
Yeah, I work I'm the manager, head of agency for Pathways Community Care
Right.
in the Pendle Hill area. So we run a variety of different programs. We're a small community centre. We have a refuge for women and children under SHS and various different drop-in programs and the like, I guess. So I work remotely at the moment, and I'm only really there 2 days a week.
Well, thanks for giving some of the time in your week to this, Kelly. It's lovely to
Oh,
have you here.
It's
And we love faces, but we understand if you didn't intend for us to be,
no, that's okay. I'm just sitting here because I've got different people, so I thought I'll go somewhere where I don't have to wear a mask.
yeah.
So here I am sneaking in here. So
Lovely. Very nice. Thanks so much, Kelly, for that. And hello, Kay. You're shy today, Kay.
No, I'm actually in a world of pain technology-wise, Marie. My computer keeps shutting down, so I thought I'll turn my video off and hope that that is less impact. Don't really know why it is, but anyway, if I disappear, it's just technology.
It's fine. We totally get it. I hope it works for you for this sort of hour.
It's driving me mad. It's driving me mad.
Fingers
today,
crossed.
so.
Fingers crossed everything. Others might join us as we kick along, and we will just welcome them when they come. I'd like to acknowledge that I'm on the beautiful Biripi country in Port Macquarie. I'd like to acknowledge their elders, past, present, emerging, and the diversity of Aboriginal cultures around Australia and all of the places where you are joining us from today. Feel free to rename your box to the place where you are, or type into the chat the name of the First Nations custodians looking after the land that you're on. We'd love for you to make that connection with us. Child safety standards and service excellence. As you've gone through it, and you've all started going through it, or we've all been through it, you will have noticed there's quite a focus on child safety. There's, not any more of a focus than anything else that's vitally important in the work that you do there, but you will notice there's quite a lot of reference to creating an environment and a culture that is looking after children, that's protecting children and other vulnerable people. So we want to say children and vulnerable people in the way that we have a look at this today. And we want you to be successful. So we thought, we might have a look at where your focus might need to be. It's timely because there's a new scheme in New South Wales, and there's also some changing regulations in South Australia as well, particularly for organisations that are set up to care for children, such as childcare and out-of-home care. In South Australia, for example, they have to submit an annual statement to say that they are compliant with the child safety standards and other things, and every time they change their policy, they have to submit a copy of their policy to the department. So that's quite a heavy-handed regulation down there, isn't it, Sean? All right, but the New South Wales scheme at the moment, launched on the 1st of February, is they're saying it's about capacity building. So it's not going to be, they're not going to be marching in there and having a look through everything and catching you out. They're going to spend a couple of years capacity building, and they will be, in New South Wales, they'll be releasing some more tools and resources such as audit tools, self-assessment tools, all of that there. So that's going to be super helpful. We've got lots of resources for you today, as always, because that's how we like to roll. And I've also got a little activity that we can do where we can have a look at systemising our approach to child safety. So we can have a look at, the elements of a really strong system around caring for, protecting children and vulnerable people. How does that sound? Do you want to have a look at the department's new groovy little video explaining all about the scheme? You'd love that, wouldn't you? It goes for 7 minutes. So here you go. You can just lean back in the chair for 7 minutes and grab your whatever you've got going on. I've got some ice water because it's very hot up here in Port Macquarie today, very steamy. So let's have a look at this little video, and then we shall dive into the service excellence framework and see where we connect with it in the standards and framework. Going to share my screen with you. And yes, that's what I'm going to do. It's called Introduction to the Child Safe Standards and the Child Safe Scheme from the Office of the Children's Guardian. OCG, New South Wales, but very, very relevant to what's happening in the other states. Very relevant.
The New South Wales Government is introducing the Child Safe Scheme to help keep children safe in organisations. This is part of its response to the recommendations of the Royal Commission into Institutional Responses to Child Sexual Abuse. The Commission recognised that commitment is needed to prevent harm to children, not just by organisations working with them, but from the community as a whole, including the government. A key part of the scheme is the Child Safe Standards. The Office of the Children's Guardian will be the lead agency responsible for rolling out the standards in New South Wales. Over the past few years, we've consulted with many organisations from a range of sectors and found clear support for them.
What are the Child Safe Standards?
The 10 Child Safe Standards provide a framework. This will drive cultural change in organisations so they can create, maintain and improve their child safe practices. The standards help prevent harm and abuse from occurring. If it does occur, organisations will know how to identify it and respond appropriately. The 10 Child Safe Standards are: 1. Child safety is embedded in organisational leadership, governance and culture. 2. Children participate in decisions affecting them and are taken seriously. 3. Families and communities are informed and involved. 4. Equity is upheld and diverse needs are taken into account. 5. People working with children are suitable and supported. 6. Processes to respond to complaints of child abuse and other types of harm are child-focused. 7. Staff are equipped with the knowledge, skills and awareness to keep children safe through continual education and training. 8. Physical and online environments minimise the opportunity for abuse to occur. 9. Implementation of the Child Safe Standards is continuously reviewed and improved. 10. Policies and procedures document how the organisation is child safe. While our enforcement and monitoring powers will extend to the Child Safe Scheme, the OCG's focus will be on capability building. Our compliance and enforcement work will be focused on places where we identify potential risks to children and young people.
Which organisations have to implement the Child Safe Standards?
The Child Safe Scheme applies to organisations in the education, early childhood, health, local council and youth justice sectors. Religious organisations and sport and recreation bodies providing services to children will also need to implement the standards. We encourage all child-related organisations to apply the standards, and everyone can use the free resources on the Office of the Children's Guardian's website to help keep children safe.
What do organisations need to do?
Applying the standards means that organisations will be able to demonstrate their commitment to keeping children safe. Children in these organisations will feel more valued and be more empowered. The focus of the standards is on continuous improvement. They allow organisations to build on what they're already doing well. The Office of the Children's Guardian knows that many organisations are already implementing parts or all of the standards. It also understands that organisations will apply the standards in different ways. This is because of the children, young people and communities they serve, their risk profiles, and because some organisations are well resourced, while others operate on a tight budget with the support of volunteers. The Child Safe Standards are principle-based and focused on outcomes so they can be applied flexibly. They are not about spending money, ticking boxes, or saying the right things to demonstrate compliance.
How will the OCG support implementation of the Child Safe Standards?
different organisations are at different stages of their child-safe journeys. Organisations should firstly review the Guide to the Child Safe Standards. It contains reflective questions that will help them identify both areas of strength and what they need to improve. The OCG will also introduce a self-assessment tool. We offer free advice, support, and child-safe resources.
What does cultural change in organisations look like?
A child-safe environment has the following key features. The best interests of children and their protection from harm is paramount. Reporting of abuse is required and never prevented. Children's rights are respected. Concerns and complaints raised by children are acted on. Leaders, staff and volunteers all demonstrate a child-safe culture through their behaviours.
How will the standards be regulated?
The Office of the Children's Guardian will take a responsive, risk-based approach to regulation. For most organisations, we will focus on education and capability building. If necessary, we'll be able to take enforcement action to ensure the safety and well-being of children. We'll have the authority to enter a premises to appropriately perform our monitoring role.
How can volunteer organisations implement child-safe standards?
Most organisations already have many child-safe practices in place. They understand that all adults have a responsibility to keep children safe. Implementing the standards and keeping children safe should be seen in the same way that you currently address physical safety hazards in your organisation. The OCG provides free training and resources for all organisations.
How can government agencies support the child-safe standards?
Some New South Wales government agencies that provide services to children or which fund and regulate other child-related organisations will be required to create child-safe action plans known as CSAPs. They'll have to report on a yearly basis to show how they're supporting their sector partners to implement the child-safe standards.
How can I find out more?
The Office of the Children's Guardian has free resources to support the implementation of the child-safe standards. These are available in a number of languages. There are videos and e-learning modules that cater to a range of learning styles. You can also find out about upcoming training sessions. Check out our website to find the support you need for your child-safe journey.
They are the same standards in every state. If you're wondering, Sean, if these apply in South Australia, they do, because they're national standards, those child safety standards, and they've got a set of national principles. So they're the same 10 standards in every state. And it's just that different states are taking a different regulatory approach to implementing the standards. So we don't have anyone from here from Victoria today, but if you were providing a service in Victoria, funded service, you would have as part of your accreditation compliance assessment against those standards. So they're mandatory in Victoria, for example, and they have been for a long time. So since they were released, the Victorian child safety standards were the first to be released, and they were based on a set of draft national principles. So that's how advanced or, you know, regulation heavy they are in Victoria. Right? So the rest of the states are taking a very sort of similar approach to that. And I wouldn't be surprised if in the future you would be being assessed against them. Yeah, so not necessarily voluntarily either. So watch this space. But anyway, we don't need a stick. We don't even need a carrot to get on with this, do we? Because it's very important to all of our organisations to provide a safe environment. So I spoke to the lovely manager of the Service Excellence team today and asked her about, you know, some thoughts that I could share with you. I asked her to come along, but she's a terribly busy person. And she did say that when they updated Service Excellence Framework to version 8, they did embed those 10 child safe standards in the requirements So you'll be seeing a lot of focus on that there. She did say there's a particular focus on cybersecurity and protecting children, young people and vulnerable people in that space too. So if you've recently documented a cybersecurity policy procedure, which I know many of you have, I would recommend an improvement could be to review that and see that it does make some specific reference to the way that you protect children in that space. Because they are particularly vulnerable, aren't they, when it comes to, you know, the digital online world. So, yeah, that would be important. So I'm thinking about environments where you are providing support to young people in a refuge and things like that. So what else? Let's open up the framework and have a look at where I was able to find all the references to child safety. And this would be a nice little checklist for those of you who have been through your accreditation and thinking, yep, we've got all of that there. I'd like to welcome my colleague, Kath McLaren, to the group. Hello, Kath. Want to let people know where you are, my dear?
Hi, sure. I've just unmuted right when my cat is yelling at me, so apologies in advance. I'm Kath. I'm an Aboriginal woman, living in...
We don't mind cats, it's all right.
On Kaurna country, which is Adelaide. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. And Kath's going to be joining our trusty band of assessors, hopefully, maybe. Let's dive in. I'm going to open up the, what I'm going to open up is the evidence guide. Now, some of you who do most of your accreditation assessment work in the portal might not even know what I'm talking about, but don't worry, we're going to be putting the evidence guide into our resources, so you'll be able to have a look at what I'm looking at. So I'll share my screen with you. We shall have a look at the evidence guide and where it all appears, all of the references to the child safety requirements. Just open that up. Share that with you. Here it is, starting at the very, very top. Places where you might not think it pops up. You might think, oh, this is all going to be down in the client facing sort of standards. No, look at this. The roles and values of the organisation clearly identified and communicated. The evidence guide says here that your values should also reflect the values of child safety and wellbeing. So, you know, those principles could be applied there, you know, when you're expressing your values. The next one here is that in the strategic plan, that families and communities are informed and involved in the planning strategies, those that promote child safety and wellbeing. So it's sort of saying, you know, having some strategies to promote child safety and wellbeing in the strategic plan, or involving organisations that can give you some, you know, input around that. The organisation looks at opportunities to raise community awareness and about, for example, child safety and wellbeing strategies. So taking a leadership role in the community around the importance of this. Going down, looking for another blue bit. If you don't like that kind of roller coaster down a document, just close your eyes for a bit. I'll tell you when I get there. Here I am. You've identified and documented your legislative obligations and related actions. So specifically around child protection, child safety and wellbeing. For your organisation, there may be some must-dos, such as there is in South Australia, with regard to, and in New South Wales with regard to screening, isn't it? Making sure that people have their working with children check, and in South Australia, for example, working with vulnerable people, there's a check there for that as well. All right, so there'll be also potentially some mandatory training requirements and possibly even some, you know, returns that have got to be sent back to the department, depending on where you are. So knowing what they are is the important thing for us as assessors to see, that you know what those obligations are, you've identified them, and then further down this framework here, there's, you know, that you've actually implemented that process and that practice. policies and procedures are supporting a child-safe culture and environment. Right, so this is an exercise, you know, that you could do as a bit of, I suppose, monitoring or checking that you've got it covered. I mean, there is a fabulous resource around these standards where there's some reflective questions that you could use to, what do we like to say, check yourself before you wreck yourself kind of thing. Check yourself before you expose yourself to an assessor or someone even more official, like a government official where they have more powers now. They can just come in. Imagine if there was a complaint and they came in and they wanted to have a look at all your system around a culture that's protecting children. Clinical risks. Now, a lot of organisations think, no, we don't have any clinical risks. You know, we're not giving people injections. We're not touching blood or any other bodily fluids. Well, clinical risks in the context of service excellence is anything that could cause harm. So, for example, clinical risks that compromise the safety of children. Now, I've got high-level clinical expertise on my team here with Kath. Kath, you are very welcome to say anything at any time. Bruce, you've got to go. I'm sorry to hear that. Bye-bye, Bruce. Was it something I said? Hopefully not.
Just in regards to the clinical stuff, you know, there's obviously national mental health standards, there's the rights of the child, there's mandatory notifications, there's all sorts of things that are related to clinical risk. You know, even so much as a young person having access to well-being, or the staff being suitably trained in mental health first aid, and clinical is a really broad space.
Yeah, that's right. And it's good to be reminded about that, that really when we are talking about clinical risk, we're talking about quite a lot of things that could represent harm, to the people that you are working with, that you are supporting. So I'll stop here. There's a couple more, but I'll stop here. And this one is about audits that would help you to identify, the extent to which your risk management processes around protecting children and vulnerable people are in place and effective. All right. And we know that audits and other sorts of system monitoring is really important for making sure that your policies and procedures are implemented as you intend. Otherwise, they're just a piece of paper, aren't they? So this is a good sort of a process to undertake there for yourself, is to have a look at all of the other sorts of highlighted areas of the service excellence framework. Reminding you again that the child safe standards have been embedded in the new version of the standards, particularly in the evidence guide. There's a lot more reference to them there. Okay. People are sitting there going, oh, yeah, no, it feels good so far. There's nothing surprising me here. Well, that's good. We love to know that. Lisa and other organisations who have already been assessed, maybe you could share some success factors. What was it that you were able to show that satisfied Eagle-Eyed Scully there when she came to do your assessment, that there was a safe environment for children? What was it? What do you think's your best sort of piece of documentation, or your best approach that's building a culture that's safe for children? What are you doing? Talking to you, John, and I'm talking to John, and I'm talking to Kelly. And
can you remember Lisa? I was traumatized.
Lisa remembers.
I can remember, and I've got an example for each one of you, is that for pathways, really it was about speaking with the workers. Like, the workers just showed that they had this hyper vigilant knowledge around the practice for the entire family, including children, not withstanding the fact that I got to see that with my own eyes when there was a crisis during one of the interviews, and everybody had to go, sorry, you're at the bottom of the list. We have to deal with this crisis. And it involved a family with children. So I was quite happy to take a back seat and to note that there was a crisis on site. As far as Veritas, I mean, of course, I got to meet with the people they support, the young people in particular who expressed how much they appreciated the level of collaboration that they had with each one of their workers. But aside from that, if I put my risk goggles on, which is, that's the lens that we look through everything, is that the developing risk management systems that I can see through Veritas and, their journey that they've documented from that continuous improvement exercise was really great to say, yeah, they've actually thought about things that are outside of the box and are working towards the plan to ensure they have all of those things covered.
Thank you, Lisa. That's exactly what I was going to say.
I knew you were going
to. Better than I did.
Yeah, you just needed iced tea to make you help you.
Well, you obviously don't. You're on a roll.
I've had one.
Exactly. That's my point.
Yeah. Lots of organisations that we work with as assessors will require us to demonstrate our compliance with their requirements around child-safe environments as well, that we have got our working with children checks and any other compliance requirements that they might have. And often organisations don't have this like bare minimum approach. Oh, what do we have to do? Let's just do that. They go over and above, and so they'll require that, whilst you're on site, we don't want you taking photos, or if you're going to be going into a space where a young person is, we'll first introduce you, so that they know who you are. And I've been in women's refuges, young women's refuges, and they've said, look, we're going to have female-only assessors. And so, there's a lot of really great protections that we see, through the practicalities of assessing. Even the way that, the visual privacy for young people in refuges that I've been in, it's really, there's been great consideration given to that, how young people can be seen in the backyard and all that there, so we've been very impressed with the level of protection we've been able to identify. We do get concerned if people have not documented all these things. And so let's rock on now to systemising. Go back to that little screen that I had there. I just want to reflect on that, the importance of doing this systematically, and that's generally what we're looking for in an area of compliance that's so very important. We're not just looking for a bit of paper over there and a person who looks after it over there. They come in once a week, it's their job. We really want to see a system around your approach to protecting young people, your approach to compliance in general, all the must-dos. We want to see that is systemised, that you're approaching it systematically. So we want to work with you now on what that sort of looks like. And I will encourage you to get your annotate working. Now, I know you clever people on Zoom here, you're going to find your ability to annotate on my screen, so you can collaborate on our lovely screen, on the next screen, by pushing your cursor up to the top of your screen and your view options. There's a tab up there. There should be a tab up there called View Options. And there's an option called Annotate. And when you click on that, it brings up a drawing toolbar. And what that means is you're going to be able to scribble and write and do all sorts of amazing things on my next screen here, which is all about, what does the system look like? Don't worry about that. Here it is here. What does a system look like? Well, this is the nutshell version of what a system looks like for us. And if you've got a really, really strong system around child protection, child safety, then we should be able to see 5 things. Now, have a scribble on my screen if you want to. I know some of you have found your annotate function, and that means you can go for your life, Kay. You can write anything on the screen you like, have a little scribble. And when you finish scribbling, you'll be able to find your text button, because what I'd like to do is just brainstorm with you some of the things that will be in place if you have, in fact, systemised the approach that you have in your organisation to child safety. Now, what we know is every very, very good system for making sure things happen the way that you want them to happen will be documented. So up near my documented bubble, If you're very clever and you can type on the screen there, I want you to type the sorts of documents that you would have that would show us that you've documented the way that you want to protect children. What sorts of documents would I see? Let's go. What sort of documents would you be able to show me? Okay, I'm going to assess you. I'm going to come into your organisation. Excellent, Kelly. We are going to see your child safe policies. What else are we going to see? Kath's put over there that the young person has been able to give you surveys and feedback specifically about how safe they feel. All right, don't worry about that happening there because I can fix that up for you. That happens sometimes and we just say snap. All right, so everything that happens to keep children safe will be documented. All right, these can even be checklists and forms, you know, the sorts of forms we might have people completing, like, you know, media forms and safe use of internet forms and all those things there. All right, so that's great, everyone. So everything that happens to keep children safe will be documented. I want to go down the bottom now to implement it. So everything that is written in those documents, you know what we want to see? We want to see that it actually happens. So what could you show us? What could you show us to show that everything that's written down actually happens in practice? I will see completed internal audits. I will see HR records around your working with children checks, exactly. I'll see risk management plans that are up to date and completed and, you know, being reviewed. And I'll see minutes to say, yes, we had a look at that. You know, I'll see lots of evidence that what you've written down in your beautiful policies and procedures actually happens in practice. That's really important for any good system. All right, I will be able to see even sign-in procedures. I'll be able to see all your COVID safety stuff, you know, in place as I walk around and I observe. You know, I'll be able to observe things like, you know, I was talking about the layout and the sorts of visual privacy that's afforded, you know, young people in your care, for example. Yeah, I'll tell you something, you know, when we're observing what's implemented in practice, I don't want to shock you here. I don't want to shock you too much, but you know, I have seen some, what would I call it? Overly friendly and familiar kind of physical contact. All right, I'm just saying, I have seen it, and in my brain, there's been this little trigger that goes, not sure about that. You know, like you've all been there. I know you've all seen it. It must be a very, very challenging thing to raise with the staff about how much hugging and how much touching and how much, you know, physical contact is okay. You know, when it comes to working with children and young people and vulnerable people, this is, I think, something that, you know, you want to document and you want to make sure is implemented in practice. You know, that you have some boundaries around that, professional boundaries around that. Anybody can comment on that, by the way. I want to say I was in a community once. You know that I work in lots and lots of Aboriginal communities around the place, and in one community, parents or even some teenagers were telling me that the nickname for the nurse at the health centre was Mr. Tickle. Mr. Tickle. I don't know why I'm laughing, because at the time I was like, what? How does he get that name? Ha ha ha. I was just making light of it. Apparently chases the children around, tackles them on the ground until they, you know, nearly wet themselves with laughter. I'm thinking, I'm not sure how I feel about that. But I was able to have a conversation with the CEO and just say, oh, you know, I've heard this. And it just made me think this, and I just thought I wanted to share that with you and see what you thought. You know, so there's that there, you know, that is a question for an organisation, isn't it? Yeah, anyway, we're doing well here. I want to jump over now to communicate it. You know, everything that happens around child safety, if you've really got this systemised, if you're really thinking about it systematically, Everything to do with child safety will be communicated to everybody who needs to know and understand, right? So what are the ways in your organisation that you could show us that you are communicating? Think about all the ways that you communicate your intention around a culture that protects children, right? So would that happen through training, supervision? Well done. Look at our lovely contributions here. So I'm thinking supervision, I'm thinking mandatory training, I'm thinking every word that starts with I and ends induction. What's that one? Induction, very important, isn't it? Yes, it's your first opportunity, isn't it, to let people know about how you want them to follow those policies and procedures. Professional development, that's a great one. Ongoing professional development, not just once. This is something that needs to be, reinforced, isn't it? Yes, it is. Wow, look at all these wonderful things. Having a really good social media policy that we communicate and we check that it's implemented. Yes, all right. There's all the ways that we make sure people know and understand about our approach to keeping children safe. So documented, implemented, communicated. Let's go over to, no, you thought I was going to go to evaluated, didn't you? I'm going to go to delegated. So in a well-functioning system, every little part of the system, all the little things that need to happen will be delegated to someone. And guess about that person? That person knows it's their job and they know how to do it. All right? So they have the capability and capacity to do it. So everything that you want to have happen, if you've got all this stuff in your risk management plan about, the mitigating strategies and mitigating the risk around harm to children, you want to make sure that every one of those controls, every one of those mitigating strategies is delegated to someone. Yeah, and we'll make sure too, all right? So we know that nothing happens if you don't delegate it. Just doesn't happen. People will kind of, dodge and say, well, that's not my job. Oh, I'm not supposed to do that. So making sure that it's clearly delegated in the registers, in the delegations, in the policies, responsibility for who does what in the policies and procedures around child safety, right? Good stuff. And then very, very important, and this is where we sometimes see the systems are weak, is that we're busy with the doing, but we're not necessarily busy with the system monitoring, which is the evaluated bubble there. So how do we evaluate this system is robust and that it is doing what we want it to do in terms of the outcomes that we want to see for children in our service? How do we evaluate whether our system is strong or weak? What sorts of things will you be looking at to know if you've got a good system for protecting children? Excellent. We're going to have continuous improvement processes and culture where people could say, you know what, I see we might have a little issue with this. You will be looking at surveys and feedback. You will be looking at incidents, complaints. You will be soliciting feedback from parents and carers and your team about where we could strengthen this system. You can use this as a checklist. How have we documented this? Have we implemented everything that we've written down? Who have we delegated these responsibilities to? How do we communicate the importance of this to everybody? Right? So research is a great way. I don't know who put that on there, but thank you. Benchmarking your system, your successes, the strength of your system against others. Having a look at best practice research, because that evolves, getting some external eyes to come in and have a look specifically at this system, using audit tools and checklists. I've put a checklist that they use in Victoria in the resources for you, because it helps you to have a look at everything, in a way that you could get a baseline for improvement.
Also helps comply with the old chestnut that I always bang on about. internal audit.
Oh, it's one of our favourite things, isn't it?
Yeah.
Internal auditing. Yeah, well, this would be a great thing to make sure that in your internal audit practice, you know, whether you've got a list of audits that you carry out in your organisation routinely, periodically across the year, for example, make sure there's one in there that's having a look at all of the compliance with these standards. You know, what are all the things that we intend to do to protect children? Are we implementing all of them? So that's how we check whether or not we've got a really strong system in place. I'm going to save that beautiful work that you've done there, because what a lovely resource that is. And I'm going to pop it in the chat before you go, and I'm also going to pop it into the resources for everyone who is watching from home on a Saturday night, as I know people do. They watch the recordings of these on Saturday night. No, they don't. Oh, well, how did that feel to have a look at what a system around child safety might look like? Right now, remember about systems, folks. You can put anything in that centre circle. Anything that's important to you and your organisation, you can put in that centre circle, and you can have a look at whether or not you've got a well-functioning system around it. Because if one of those bubbles is missing, what have you got? You haven't got a system. And we'll be able to see that, because that's what we're looking for when we come out. We're looking for systems around really important things that need to get done, all the must-dos, right? Yes, so use that. That's a systems thinking approach. That's for you. You can use that at any time. And I put a little trigger in the corner. Did you see it? A little learning trigger to help you to remember. Systems are diced. Just what you need in your world. Another acronym. There you go, freebie. DICED. That's your checklist. Documented, implemented, communicated, evaluated, and delegated, or it won't get done. There you go. There you go. What's next? Ooh, if you're thinking about reviewing your policy, I've got a little checklist here for your policy, and I found this on the South Australian. Sean, what are you calling? Sorry, Sean and Kath, what do you call your office? I think it's the Commissioner for something down there, isn't it?
The Commissioner of Public Sector Employment, OPSE.
No, the one that's looking after children.
Oh, Office for Guardian Children and Young People, or
that's the one.
That's the
one.
Helen Conley is the Guardian's name.
Yeah, thank you. Look at that. That's bloody high level knowledge right there. Hang on, here it is. And down there they say your child safe policy must. Ooh, so they're getting serious about it down there. It's not a guideline, this one, it's a must do.
Yeah.
So I've highlighted all the things that you must have in your policy, because if we come and assess you, which we will, Sean, we want to see that you've got these things in your policy, right? Because when we send your service excellence report off to the department, they're looking, and sometimes they type to us and they say, did you have a look at that? Did you have a look at this? And we get a bit worried about that kind of approach back to us about our reports. So we're very diligent about all the must-dos. So there you go. You've got to show that all of your people in your organisation are committed to the wellbeing of children and young people. And there will be appropriate standards of behaviour and practice will be documented. And they're saying in a code of conduct. Staff and volunteer awareness. So that would be, as we've talked about, training and making sure that people know. Knowledge of how to identify and how to respond and how to report. All right, we will make sure we will be asking questions of people. You should be asking questions of your people and testing their knowledge. Don't just we don't just assume that people know because they're carrying a lot around in their brains, but they should know how to identify if a children or young person might be at risk. They should know the response that's documented, that's legislated, and they should know how to report. And in most jurisdictions, it's not about whether you're a mandatory reporter. And it's not about whether or not you've investigated it and you know that it's an issue and then you report it. In Victoria, for example, I know that it has to be reported straight away. Even if it's suspected, it's reported, right? So there's, those things that people need to know, and that's why it's important that you document it. And that includes reference to the national standards and principles that we've already sort of had a look at. And it's relevant to the size and nature and resources of your organisation, okay? What questions do you have, anybody? Any comments or questions? Or if you want to make a statement about how very awesome you are in implementing all of this here, let's wave goodbye to Kath because she's got to go. And we love to see you anytime, Kath. Thank you. Questions and comments can come at any time, folks. You know that. I do sort of, I rabbit on a bit, but just unmute yourself and interrupt me if you want to say.
I wish to provide an update on my newest child.
Thank you, Lisa.
For anyone who doesn't know, I'm getting a puppy.
Surely isn't anyone that doesn't know this by now.
I know. I've been providing lots of puppy span. I'm getting a golden retriever. It was a litter of one, just one girl.
Magic.
So she's meant for me. She's massive. She's enormous.
Well, she took the whole womb. Of course she's massive.
Yeah. And she's 3 weeks old. So I still got 5 weeks to get her, but I got to meet her last week. So I'm very excited.
Where's the photos?
Haven't you got a photo you can pop up on your screen?
Of course,
Of course I do. Of course I do. So this was on Tuesday. So yes, she's super cute. She's a little chunk. So I'm calling her Scout.
Good name.
So that's my child protection matter at the moment.
Very good. Now, Lisa's suffering from a big case of empty nester-itis, and some of us who are parents will know exactly how that feels. And when you get that special puppy or kitten, oh, it is a magical time, isn't it? The child's gone, here comes the puppy. Oh, yeah,
I want to see that child protection framework when that puppy starts chewing things.
Yeah, and chasing the cat.
Right.
Yeah.
Roll up that newspaper.
That
I'm just joking. I'm just joking.
And how much tickling and cuddling is going to go on there?
Beautiful things happening in our lives. That's wonderful. Now, here are the places to go. You're going to have these links to be able to click and go and check out some other resources. There are some there from South Australia, New South Wales. I've also put into your resource pack, what did I put in there? Let me just have a look at the sorts of things we're sharing with you. This month, I'm putting in there that evidence guide that we had a look at, all of the sections of the framework that relate to child safety highlighted in blue. So you'll have that there. You're going to have the guide to the standards. So it's a national document. The National Principles for Child Safe Organisations. That's a national document. You're going to have a sample policy for risk management around child safety. So you can take that sample and you can use it to review your own or to develop your own if you want to go that way. You've got a template for a statement of commitment to child safety. That's a really good sort of a document to use in induction, for example. I've got, speaking of induction, I've got a child safe summary for new personnel. So that's one that you can take and put your own, logo on and put references to your own state's legislation and frameworks around child safety. So you can use that one. That's a nice sort of, back and front sort of brochure that you could use. And I've got a line to the Victorian child safety standards, which are the same as the national ones, but they're a bit in a different order, I just want to say, because they started out so early, they've got their very own. But as you heard the video from the OCG say, they're going to be bringing out a self-assessment tool of their own, so you'll be able to use that one soon. But in the meantime, I've put the very excellent Victorian self-audit tool in there for you. Because we like you. That's why, and we want you to be successful. So if you're watching the recording, reach out, connect with us, connect with other organisations, have a look at what they're doing, have a look at the resources. I heard that, Kelly. And dogs, cats and dogs this afternoon.
They're both there.
That's good.
So Kelly, to answer your question,
Yes.
is that there's a lot. Kelly's got a question around internal audit. So the ISO standards do this really well. If you want to Google like a 9001 internal audit report, it does not have to be bigger than Ben-Hur, right? Heard me say this. It's a one-pager where you look at one of the indicators and you say, this is what the indicator says. This is the evidence we have for it, and what are the gaps? That's all it is. So it doesn't have to be a massive exercise. Break it down into 99 chunks because there's 99 of those indicators, and just roll through those systematically, you know, to the size and scope of your organization. Like we talked about, you're not going to be doing this every month because you've got one work or one FTE behind. But honestly, if you just have a look at an ISO example, I'm developing a toolkit, but it's not ready yet. So that it's just very, very simple. It just says to me, yes, we've actually pulled apart the actual compliance standards and mapped where we are against it. So a mini self-assessment.
Excellent. I want to respond to that as well and say that the Child Safe Standards resource that we're putting in the on the website in our little portal there, it has some reflective questions that you can go through as a checklist to what you should or could have in place. Right? So you can use that. I'm saying you could even cut and paste those questions out and put them on a form and use that as your internal audit tool. If you wanted a formal audit, the areas, I'm just sharing my screen with you here now, there's an organisation that's been set up for many, many years, got a great reputation, Child Safe, and they're set up specifically to undertake child safety audits. So, you know, if you've got some money and you want to pay for an external audit, this would be the way to do that. I believe, I'm not 100% sure, but people could check this for me, that BNG, who are looking after the quality portal that many of you are using for your evidence and self-assessment against these service excellence standards, I believe if you have a look at their national accreditation products, they will have the national child safe standards on there that you could do a self-assessment against. Tip. How's that? Is that helpful? Have we answered Kelly's questions? Goodbye, John. Goodbye. We're going to say goodbye to everybody now because our hour is up and plus 2 minutes. So I want to say thank you so very much for joining us on The Wire. We're going to see you next month. We'd love to have your ideas about topics. If there's anything particularly that's a crick in your craw or something that you're finding challenging in your organisation, just type to us or type to Lisa. Let her know. She's the person behind helping to put all this together. So let us know what you'd like to talk about. Otherwise, we're going to make something up. All right. Congratulations to everyone. I wish Kay luck. Her organisation's having their assessment next week. I'm coming down to Sydney.
Thank you.
Good
We're
luck.
ready. We're ready for you.
It's DV Services Management New South Wales. It's a very important organisation. So I'll look forward to seeing you there, Kay. Sean and Mount Barker, I think, have got their assessment next week. Is that correct, Sean?
That is correct.
Good luck,
You've
Sean.
got Jill coming your way. Ooh,
Solidarity, Sean.
All right, and Nigel, you've got a little while before we come and start looking through your drawers. But good luck, everyone.
Thank you, Marie. Thank you,
And
Lisa.
look for the resources and the recording online shortly.
Okay, bye.
Thanks, Lisa.
Okay, see ya.